Hello, everyone. My name's Ben Meyerson, and today you're joining not Grant Cohn's channel, you're joining my channel. My name is Ben Meyerson. You can go check me out on all forms of social media if you just look at my name. But today I'm happy and really excited to be joined by All 49ers SI publisher Grant Cohn. First of all, Grant, how are you doing? You've been at OTAs the last few days. You've been doing a lot of streams. You've been on Twitch. You've been doing a lot lately.
I've been okay. I'm a little this look, everyone says you need to slow down, but as you know, this doesn't really feel like work. It's a lot of fun. I'm energized. I've been looking forward to coming on your show all week. You've been on my show a bunch of times, so I'm excited for the role reversal.
Yeah, I'm super excited for the role reversal too, because this is the day when I get to ask you questions and I get to
That's right.
like you. And I'm excited for what we have lined up today. We're going to be talking a little bit about OTAs and some other stuff, but let's just get into the news of the day, which is this morning. Julio Jones. There was some information put out by Diana Rossini that a bunch of different teams have inquired about Julio Jones, and one team even offered a first-round pick for him. And I think she followed up her tweet by saying that the Titans were one of the teams interested, but that they won't likely trade for him, and that she expects Julio to be traded sometime early next week. Even that could happen because June 1st, I believe, is Tuesday or Monday next week. So before I get into the full breakdown, what are your thoughts on that report this morning?
Well, she's legit. I mean, she's up there with Adam Schefter and the best of them. So if she says that Atlanta can get a first round pick for Julio Jones, I gotta believe her, although I'm skeptical. But I gotta believe her. And if that's the case, then it sounds like Tennessee's out of it. And then let's come to the Niners. I mean, they could trade the 2024 first round pick for Julio Jones. They could, but think about it logistically. That he would be how old in 2024? 35? 36. So essentially, your first round pick in 2024 would be on a 36-year-old. That's not what you want. You'd rather trade next year's first than that, I think, on a guy that old. So I think it's starting to be. I don't know which team is going to be giving up this first round pick. Is it going to be like the Raiders or I don't know, maybe the Raiders? But I can't. Yeah, it's starting to look bleak for the Niners.
Well, and there's a lot of AFC teams interested too. I think that's the big thing people have to watch out for is even if the Niners, because we'll get into why they should want him in a second, but even if they do end up trading for Julio or trying to trade for Julio Jones, they're going to be competing with the Patriots, the Chargers, the Titans potentially, even though, like Diana said, they might be out. But there's so many AFC teams interested in him. I think it could be really tough. And I do want to get into this first with Julio. The thing about him is that in the first year of the deal you're trading for Julio Jones, you're getting about a $15 million year deal. That's going to be really tough for the Niners to work out right now because their current salary cap stands at about $17-18 million, and they have yet to still sign rookies like Trey Lance, Trey Sermon, and just a few others. So they're going to need to pay guys eventually, and there's the Fred Warner extension that hasn't happened yet. So I think just financially, when I started looking at it that way, it just seems really tough for the 49ers to execute. I'm not saying it's impossible for them to do, but I would think it unlikely because I think they would have to do some maneuvering around their cap to even make it work.
Yeah. It does look like it would cost him $15 million this year, $11 million next year, and $11 million the year after that. So his most expensive year for the Niners would be 2021. It's tough. They'd have to probably. It seems to me that if they go get Julio Jones, then they gotta get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo the same day, I think. And they would have to see enough from Trey Lance in the next 4 or 5 days to feel comfortable with that. And honestly, what I saw from Trey Lance at OTAs wouldn't make me feel comfortable trading Jimmy Garoppolo just yet. That being said, if you give Trey Lance Julio Jones, maybe he'd be a lot better. Tough one.
Man, let's be real. Like getting Julio Jones, I don't even want to say he's underrated right now because that's not the right way to say it. But people are a little down on Julio because he was hurt last season, right? But if you look at just before that, the 6 seasons going up to that, he'd only missed 4 games total. And there's all these crazy stats that I was looking up the other night, how Julio is the career leader in yards per game behind, and for second place, the difference is about 10 yards. So between first and second. It's not even close. And then if you keep looking, he's like number 20 in all-time receiving yards. And he has – this was pretty crazy. I read this on Jack Hammer's article that he put out for All 49ers at SI. In the last 2 seasons, Julio Jones has more catches and yards than the entire wide receivers room that the 49ers have right now. So, like you're saying, Julio Jones would be excellent. And quite frankly, he would be the perfect X receiver for this offense. I mean, you could see him in that role. You could see Debo moving down to the slot, putting Ayuk or on the same side as Kittle. So football-wise, I'm not against it. Like you're saying, you want to give Trey Lance as much help as possible early on in his rookie career. I think that would be really important. But at the same time, like I just mentioned earlier, I think logistically it's just going to be too tough for the Niners to pull off. And like you said, why would they give up a first-round pick when they just gave up 2? Well, some people say 3, but let's say even if you're being optimistic, 2 first-round picks just to move up for Trey Lance. It's a lot of draft capital you spent this offseason. So they need to – they're going to have to – if they're going to trade for Julio Jones, it's going to be something like a 2nd and a 4th-round pick. I think that's what you threw out the other day. I saw an ESPN reporter wrote an article suggesting that as well. So, I mean, if we're trading for him for that value, I don't think it would be crazy. But like you were just saying, if the Falcons get an offer for a first-round pick, they'd be kind of crazy not to take it.
Hey, I just don't know which team would offer that, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. And I want to move on next to OTAs because you were at OTAs this week. You got a great view of what was happening. The media always gets this every year, but I want to start off with this. I think you've done a lot of film watching over the offseason. You've been really tuned into what's going on with the Niners. What do you think when you went in that day, when you were watching, was there one position group or one player you were watching that was maybe better than what you expected them to be going into that day?
Yeah. Let me answer the question with the player because it was one day for an hour, and to make a big opinion about an entire group is a little early, but I can do it for a player for sure. Right off the bat, Jawan Jennings. It was one day, but I remember, I mean, they drafted him last year. He was a 7th-round pick. He looked like an undrafted free agent in camp last year. His body looked ordinary compared to the other draft picks. He was not getting open. He was dropping passes. He looked not good. And he didn't make the team. I guess he was hurt. I forgot, he spent most of the year on the practice squad. And I had 0 expectations for him coming in. But I can't help but notice I saw him at the rookie minicamp. I've seen him twice now. He's in great shape. He's lean and muscled up. He looks like he's totally transformed his body. He looks like a draft pick. And in 7-on-7s, he beat K'Wan Williams down the seam for like a 25-yard catch. I saw him catch the ball over his head with his hands like this. I mean, he looked good. That's just one play. But first impression, Jawan Jennings looks like he's a totally different guy. So that's good news. He was supposed to be the Kendrick Bourne replacement anyway.
Yeah, he was definitely supposed to be. People were really excited when they drafted him. They thought it was a great value. But when you were seeing in OTAs, was he practicing with the first team or was he practicing?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, in the 7-on-7. So like the Niners are doing, at least what they did at OTAs, the first one was there's a quarterback competition. Right. Garoppolo gets all the first team reps. Trey Lance gets all the second team reps. And that's in 11-on-11s. Well, it's in all of them. But in 7-on-7s, they do it. They play at the same time, which is hard to watch, but somehow, some way I get it done. So anyway, you had Jawan Jennings in the far field with the starters with Jimmy Garoppolo. So he caught the pass from Jimmy. He beat K'Wan Williams. He was with the starters. It's good to know. It's good to notice because like Travis Benjamin's playing with Trey Lance, you know.
Yeah. See, and that's something that sticks out to me immediately because Travis Benjamin is someone we talked about a little bit this offseason. He was a COVID opt-out in 2020. But yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to see how that wide receiver 3, even wide receiver 4 breaks out because those are going to be 2 of the most important positions for the Niners on offense this year.
I mean, everyone's talking about Jalen Hurd, but like I still haven't seen that dude in a long, long time. Jawan Jennings is the one who looks like he's in peak shape right now. So keep an eye on him. Watch his highlights.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone keep an eye out for him.
Yeah.
I do want to go negative, though, because, of course, we have you on my channel, Grant. So when you were going into OTAs, was there one player that you saw who maybe he wasn't quite what you were expecting or maybe he didn't live up to what you thought he was?
Yes. I've also seen this guy twice. He was at the rookie minicamp, same position group, same position, big slot receiver. Austin Watkins. This guy had a bunch of hype. He played well apparently at the Senior Bowl. I'm not sure exactly who's going up against at the Senior Bowl, but from what I've seen of him in 2 practices, he can't get open, man. He can't beat anyone. He is stiff. He's strong, but he's stiff, and these corners lock him up. And whenever he gets a target, it's just like pass breakup. That's very easy. It's like it almost seems like the kind of guy that DBs are going to be lining up to face. Like, oh man, I need some good tape. I need to make some money. Let me get Austin Watkins. Now, before I go too hard on this kid, that's what I felt about Jawan Jennings last year. So sometimes 7th round pick, undrafted guy, you have a little hype. People, dude, these guys, they're kids. They don't really know what the difference is going to be like. And sometimes it takes them a year. I think with Jennings, the light has gone on. With Watkins, it could take him a year as well. But if you expect Austin Watkins to make this team and be the number 3 receiver, I don't see that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and I'm
talking to the viewer directly.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
You're talking to the viewer.
Yeah. You. Yeah.
But I think it's important to point out what you were saying is that these are really young guys. I mean, just even looking at Trey Lance the other night, he's younger than I am, Grant. So this current draft class is literally my high school graduating class. It's crazy.
Wow.
And you're right. You're absolutely right. It's going to take these guys a little more time than just a few OTAs, a few rookie mini camps, especially for an undrafted free agent like Austin Watkins, right?
So it's interesting to look at these guys who in year 2, guys who were 6th, 7th, 8th undrafted free. I really said that. It's interesting because those are the guys either that build up their body and make something of themselves or wash out right away. Yeah.
And for this season, it's absolutely going to be Jawan Jennings. I mean, I like you were saying, he's really exciting. And I was really into him when they drafted him last year. So I'm into that. But just what you're
like my reaction when I see him is like, ooh, who's that? Jennings? Really? That's the reaction I get watching him. Oh, okay. His body's totally different. Wow, he looks fast. He looks good. Not fast, faster.
Yeah. Well, and I think, just to go back on what you're saying with Austin Watkins, 49ers fans were all over him. I mean, they wanted to take him in like the 6th round of the draft, the 5th round people were calling for him. So like you're saying, I mean, this is it's not a
give him some time
wide receiver room, but it's a crowded wide receiver room if we're being realistic.
I haven't seen him win yet, so I'm not really. Just think about Jawan Jennings for now. Austin Watkins looks like a project if he has anything.
Okay.
I don't know.
And I hear you. And
also, Diamador Lenore, I don't know about him either. He has one good clip floating around Twitter. You've all seen it. Who was he going up against?
Austin Watkins.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, I don't know about him. But again, he's a 5th round pick. Those him and Talanoa Hufanga look like they should be special teams players. And if you can get anything more out of them, great. But in terms of like man-to-man coverage, neither one of them looks like there's a lot of upside there. They could do other things maybe.
And I think that kind of actually perfectly leads me into my next topic, because the next thing I did want to talk about, just based off this topic we had beforehand, is what is one position group you're looking at that the Niners need to address? I want to talk about this really quick first, because I was looking at something, and you were just talking about the cornerback position. The 49ers took a cornerback at 102 and in the 5th round. The 49ers don't really seem to value the position all that much. And if you look at the history of this regime, I think their highest pick for a corner in general is 66 with Akella Witherspoon, who's not even on the team anymore. And then if you look up and down the 49ers starting secondary, I'm going to list off these guys now. Verrett, Tart, Ward, K'Wan Williams, Emmanuel Mosley. None of those guys played 16 games last season. Yeah. And only 3 of them played 10-plus games. So, man, I was really frustrated that they didn't address this position in the draft or in free agency, quite frankly. And then if you look down the salary cap table in the next few years, the Niners only have 2 of those guys signed for next year, and then the year after that, none of them are on the roster. So it's a position that the team is just neglecting for the future. They seem to think they're okay for this year, but let's be realistic, Grant. Even if they're quote unquote okay for this year at corner, it's a position they have to get younger at, and they need to get younger at soon.
Well, I think I'm intrigued by Ambry Thomas. That's one guy who could be good. He's 6 feet tall. He runs a 4.3. He has special teams experience, offense experience. I'm curious to see what he looks like in training camp. I mean, I'm not going to judge any of these rookies too hard in May. None of these guys were even playing in May last year. It's a good ramp-up period so they can actually compete in August. But Ambry Thomas is interesting. He's more physically gifted than Emmanuel Mosley right now. Right. You can see the difference. He's bigger. He's faster. He's more physically. That doesn't mean he's better. Mosley's got some experience. Mosley's pretty good. And then Jason Verrett looks terrific too. So if Verrett can stay, Verrett looks healthy. He looks like he's in great shape. Mosley's scrappy. Thomas has upside. The rest of the guys I'm not wild about, but I actually think they could use another edge rusher, man. I mean, they all assume Bosa's coming back and going to be great. I haven't seen him. And then D Ford, I don't know, man. I don't expect anything from him. And so right now what they got is Samson Ebukam and Eric Armstead on the edges. And then if it's not Armstead, it's going to be Arden Key. So why do that when there's Justin Houston available?
Melvin Ingram,
Everson Griffin. Yeah, I mean, why? Why?
All these guys.
Yeah, so I think after June 1, there's going to be more movement on that, and that could be something the Niners do easily. Why not?
I actually really agree with that. I think it's something I didn't focus in on because I've been so hammered on the corner position. But you're right. I mean, they don't really have that true speed edge rusher to complement Nick Bosa, even if he is there. So it's a position they have to be aware of, or if not depth, just to get that extra starter in there.
I think so.
I totally agree. I mean, just even looking at the other signings they made on the defensive line, Arden Key, some of the other people, those are mostly interior guys. I mean, besides Samson Ebukam, you're not signing a true pass rusher. And then even with Samson,
and is exactly. Sorry, you took the words out of my mouth. Is he a pure pass rusher? I mean, he's got upside, but he's kind of like a jack of all trades.
Well, and they seem to be wanting to use him for the Kyler Murrays of the world and the Russell Wilsons of the world to spy them too. So even then, he's not going to be playing edge in those games.
Exactly.
So
I mean, I was standing there at practice being like, looking at the defense. Okay, I was saying Armstead and Ebukam on the edges, huh? Is that the plan? That's not the plan. I mean, they could at least bring in someone else. Justin Houston always gets 8 sacks a year. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
And there's a ton of veterans available right now.
Yeah.
Biggest thing. Like you were saying, post June 1, there's going to be a lot more options for the Niners. I think I don't want to judge them too harshly now because they will have the opportunity to make up those spots. It's unlike any year this year with free agency, just with what's going on with the pandemic. Teams will have all these other opportunities to get high-level players that you wouldn't otherwise get at this part of the offseason. And I think, like you're saying, there's like 3 guys we named that are just available now. So, yeah, absolutely the Niners
certainly
go out and get another pass rusher. But do want to mention this on my way out with corner. So, as I mentioned, the 49ers don't value the position. They don't pick it highly. Of the top 10 corners paid in the NFL, 7 of them first-round picks. The other 3 second-round picks.
Exactly. So when you're waiting until round 3 to get corners, it's like, man, good luck. And Ambry Thomas, he seems like he has potential. Man, good luck. 102nd pick in the draft. You're really trying to find a diamond in the rough there.
In other years, Grant, that's a 4th-round pick, actually, right?
Yeah.
That was a compensatory pick. So he's not.
Think about it though, like the difference. Like it's very hard to draft a wide receiver or a quarterback. Quarterback, there's the scheme. There's so many variables that affect his play. The offensive line, the weapon. Same with a wide receiver. So many variables. There's a high bust rate, but with corners, just like, man, just turn on the coach's tape and see if he can cover the best wide receivers man to man. It's just chasing. Can you chase him and keep it close? It's not hard. If you can see it. And those guys go very high in the draft. You just have to value it, basically. It's not like you have to have a keen eye to watch that. No.
I mean, look at teams who do value the secondary and corners specifically. I mean, the Patriots, the Dolphins, those are 2 teams whose defensive ranked really well. I mean, the league is only going to more and more towards passing. And I don't like.
How many corners were taken in the top 33 this year? 6, 7?
Something like that.
Something like that. Tyson Campbell went 33, and after that, it was pretty much over. I mean, if you want to get a corner after that, good luck.
I think, the next one that was taken was Asante Samuel at 40.
Yeah, and he might be good, but those guys who could be like, who are looked at as potential number 1 corners, they go in round 1. Maybe they slip into the top of round 2. Maybe.
And that's the thing. Maybe. I mean, it's like you're saying, it's not as hard to like watch the position and just understand what guys are doing. I mean, you're either covering a guy or you aren't.
Exactly. You can see it.
You can do it, get it done. But.
And then you go to the combine, you test well too. I mean, if you're running 4.3, you're 6 feet tall, and there's tape of you locking down the best college wide receivers, you're going to be a top 15 pick. That's it. End of story.
Yeah, absolutely.
End of story.
I mean,
does that translate? Yes, it translates.
Yeah,
it does.
I mean,
yeah.
a guy like Jeff Okudah last year who ended up being like a bust. I mean, just yeah. So there are endless examples of it. But I do want to move on to the next topic.
I prefer CJ Henderson, by the way.
Yeah,
because the reason people prefer Jeff Okudah was like he's more physical, he tackles better. I don't care. He runs a 4.48. Well, that means he's going to struggle with speed matchups. I want a guy who doesn't struggle with any matchups. You know what I mean? I want a guy who's big and fast and quick that I can just not worry about him. You know, he can handle a guy like DK Metcalf or a guy like Tutu Atwell. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But with Okudah, it does.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I do want to move on to this next. I think there's going to be it's going to be interesting to see what the Niners offense does this year. And specifically, there's going to be a lot of players coming back from injury. But what I wanted to ask you was, who do you think, just looking up and down the roster, is going to have the biggest leap in offensive production in 2020 or from 2020?
Ross Dwelley. I'm serious. It's not a joke. I really feel like there's a void in targets right now. Bourne and Jordan Reed. Let me get the numbers real quick.
Well, let me tell you this, Grant, because I was looking at Ross Dwelley as well. I'm glad you brought him up. He's not who I picked. He ended up coming second for me.
Okay.
But these three players finished with more targets than Ross Dwelley last year. Jeff Wilson Jr., Jordan Reed, and Jerick McKinnon.
Yes.
That's a problem.
And those guys are gone. I mean, they're gone.
Yeah. And
Wilson not permanently, but yeah.
But all three of those guys aren't going to be on the team at the week 1 this year. So they're going to have to replace all these targets. And then, like you've mentioned so many times this year, with Kendrick Bourne, that's a big role you're replacing. That's 45 yards per game. That's 5 targets per game. So
hold on, I got some numbers for you. I'm looking them up. So Kendrick Bourne was second on the team in targets last year with 74. Jordan Reed was
46 targets.
Jerick McKinnon, 46 targets. So that's 166 targets that are now unaccounted for. 166. So some of those go to Jawan Jennings, and some of those go to Trey Sermon, and some of those go to Raheem Mostert, and some go to whoever, but Kyle Juszczyk as well. I think Juszczyk should get a little bit. I think he's finally going to get a little bit more involved. But Ross Dwelley, until the Niners trade for Julio Jones, I fully expect Ross Dwelley to go from a guy who's getting 24 targets in a season to 46. Double that. 48.
The thing about looking at that target list is Ross Dwelley is one of the only guys at receiving who even plays 16 games. I mean, all the other guys up and down the roster, there's one game missed here or half the season missed here. He was so consistent for this team, and they didn't reward him. And
he caught 79% of his targets. It seems clear that until Julio is on this team, and he probably won't, that the top 3 guys in terms of targets, and they'll get the bulk of them, will be Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, obviously. Absolutely. And so after that, it's kind of like, whoever that is that week. But Dwelley, Juszczyk, Mostert, Sermon, those are very good options. You don't necessarily need to have a number 3 receiver on this team because Dwelley's kind of like a slot receiver anyway. He's 6'5". He gets open. I mean, how much more is Jawan Jennings really going to give you than Ross Dwelley? Yeah, look for Dwelley and Juszczyk both to get about 50 targets this year. They should.
Yeah, they absolutely should. I mean,
I think and then also Richie James Jr. Richie James Jr. too could as well. He's another guy who deserves about 50 targets. All 3 of them. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I just did want to mention the whole Juszczyk signing that happened, and people were, let's just say, a little confused. They thought it may have been a little too long of a deal, but once the team drafted Trey Lance, to me, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense why they picked up Kyle Juszczyk again, especially for 5 years. You're going to need him there. But I do want to bring up my candidate for this year. It's going to be Brandon Ayuk. And nice. I'm not just saying that because 49ers fans love Brandon Ayuk, and this will probably do well on YouTube. But let's be real. Brandon Ayuk should be getting more targets. He was getting about 5 targets or 5 catches per game last year. And in a 17-game season, that's like 1,000 yards and 11 total touchdowns for his averages. So just on that basis, Ayuk should be getting more and more. And last year, he was getting 12.5 yards per touch. He was getting 62 yards per game. And he ranks like 3rd in the NFL in yards per touch. So I think they just need to get Ayuk the ball more. I think
special teams too.
Special
teams too. You can't get him the ball enough. Kick returns, punt returns. Why not? Why not? I still think it's more dangerous to run a slant over the middle than to return a kick. Because when you're running a slant over the middle, you don't know where the hit's coming from. You're looking at the ball. The hit's coming from over here. As a kicker, the whole field's in front of you, man. The whole field is in front of you. A supreme athlete like him can avoid a hit. Come on. Same with punt returns. It's not that dangerous. No. Wide receiver is more dangerous.
And Debo should be getting more of those too. I mean, I know you've harped on it, and I'm not just trying to repeat what you're saying, but it's
could win games for him. Could win games for him, man. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, talk about like a field game or a game-changing touchdown or just a return that puts them over the 50-yard line. I mean, it's any number of things that these guys can offer. But
most of the time, I feel like the Niners to win a game, they need like a real good execution from both offense and defense, which they don't usually. Well, they sometimes get, but it'd be a lot easier to just always have a good special teams and be able to weather an off day from offense or defense.
Yeah,
that's what it's there for.
Oh, yeah, especially if you have a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback who's prone to make mistakes. You know what makes up for those mistakes? A great special teams play.
Bingo. Harbaugh understood that. If you don't have an elite quarterback, that's a great way to even the odds.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, some of the best coaches in NFL history, you talk to them about special teams. Bill Belichick will go on and on about special teams, and Kyle Shanahan doesn't seem to value it as much as other head coaches right now, and I don't really understand that.
Here's the thing: I've been looking about this. Most head coaches have people discount experience these days. You just got to get a guy at 35, but most head coaches have a very diverse background of coaching. Like if you're not a head coach by 35, you end up coaching everything. You work your way around the team, and by the time you get to coordinator, head coach, you can coach every position or a lot of position groups. And he's just not that kind of guy. He is a coordinator's coordinator. He is a play designer's play designer. But when it comes to teaching the techniques of playing offensive tackle, he's no better than he has nothing to offer. Or the techniques of playing quarterback, he has nothing to offer. He's very specific in his skill set.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I was just I just saw this the other day. Brandon Staley, the new coach of the Chargers, he was the defensive coordinator. He was a special teams coordinator, and he played quarterback in college. I mean, those are talk about having a diverse background. That's so important for their success.
He coached quarterbacks. I mean, Andy Reid, he has the whole gamut. Sean Payton, look at these guys. Experience matters.
Yeah,
matters.
It absolutely does. I do want to move on to one last thing about OTAs.
Okay.
You got to see Trey Lance in person twice. It's more than anyone else, or well, I guess the same as everyone else in the media. But you saw him the first time, then you saw him just Tuesday in OTAs. Going into Tuesday, what kind of expectations did you have for Trey, and how do you think he lived up to those expectations?
I think my expectations had gotten a little too high. I bet my dad a bottle of wine that Trey Lance was going to start week 1. And I don't know why I did that or where that came from. I mean, I don't think he's ready to start week 1. And that's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's kind of as advertised. The book on him was that he's currently working on his mechanics, that it's going to take some time. He's a work in progress. If you want him, you got to be committed you got to trust the process. And so just to see it in person, to say, okay, I see what this is. It's going to take a little time, but he just turned 21. He's not the most natural thrower, but he is a cannon. He's a great athlete and he's a hard worker. So he's going to go to the right coaches. They're not in the Niners organization, but they're all over the world. They're in California. There are throwing gurus that he can go to this offseason, and he can he can perfect his mechanics well enough to be a good dual threat quarterback.
Absolutely. And I think I've even seen with Trey, he goes to the quarterback coach, Quincy Avery, I believe. I think Grant.
Yeah, my bad. I'm here. My bad. No, sorry. My computer, my internet's going in and out. My bad. He goes to Quincy Avery. He should probably go. He goes to John Beck, who works with Tom House. He should go to Tom House. Tom House is the Yoda of this. Okay. But here's what I see from him. When he throws to his right, some quarterbacks struggle one side more than the other. With Kaepernick, it was left. You really have to open up your hips to throw to your left. Jimmy Garoppolo does it great. Jimmy has his front hip open all the time. And this guy's a little bit like that too. He's really good at throwing to his left. He can fire those passes over there. But when it's time to throw it to his right, it's like he opens up a little too early, overstrides, and leaves his arm behind. The release point's a little different, and it's more of an arm throw, and it sails. You can see him do it. So that's what he's working through right now. As advertised, this is a guy who hasn't thrown many passes in his life compared to these other guys who are in the NFL. So even compared to Josh Rosen in these settings on a 7-on-7, I would imagine, even though Rosen hasn't played yet, I would imagine Rosen would outperform Lance. But remember, that's not real football. That's training. Real football is 11-on-11 with tackling, and he's going to look way better because you're going to have play action, rollouts, scrambling. He's going to look way better. So he's right on pace.
And I think that's good to hear because, I mean, just thinking back to those cone phones I was doing with you going up to the draft, I remember even I was super skeptical about him playing at all year one,
right?
Maybe even waiting into year two. So
yeah,
let's be real. We have to wait with Trey, and we have to let
his confidence in his arm comes and goes in the span of one practice. So until he handles that, I wouldn't make him my starting quarterback because he's making Jimmy look real confident. You know what I mean? His lack of confidence right now, which is okay for a 21-year-old who's trying to impress people, is just making Jimmy feel like, wow, wait a second. Maybe you're not running me out of town. Maybe things are changing. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think it is. It's going to be an interesting dynamic with Jimmy and Trey next year. Just seeing, I mean, this year and going up to week one. I mean, especially with how I'm looking in the comments.
It's like if you had a job, right? If you had a YouTube channel and it was great, and someone was like, you know what, we're taking it away from you and giving it to a 13-year-old kid, and you're like, oh, word, okay, this kid's really good, right? And you see him and he's like terrified, and he's like stuttering and like looking at his notes and like this is a guy who's taking my job. Got it, cool, we're good. It's like we're good. Well, I still have a career.
I'm comfortable in my position.
Go ahead, go knock him out. I'll go after you, man.
Yeah,
let's see what you got. Yeah.
And I think with Trey, I mean, it's just gonna be about a matter of cleaning up the mechanics. I mean, the fact is, he can make every throw in the book. He can do it all.
Good decision maker, smart, big, athletic. No, just hit your spots, man. Yeah. And the thing is, look, not every quarterback has succeeded in the accuracy challenge of gaining it. Like Gabbert, for example. That's why he sucks. Sorry, Blaine. But that's why, by NFL standards, you're a backup because you can't put the ball where you want to put it. Now, he doesn't just miss high. He misses low. He misses every kind of way you can miss. I've seen a lot of Blaine Gabbert. He was a lot older when he was with the Niners, but God, it's painful, man. And you could same thing with him. You'd feel the lack of confidence in his arm. He'll miss a throw. It's embarrassing, and it's just check down city the rest of the day. So that's where Trey has to leave. What's up, Amin? How you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah, and man, it's just gonna take some time with Trey. And like you were saying, I think what I'm gathering from what you're saying is he's just gotta bring it in a little bit and get more consistent with what he's doing. Rep after. I
think he could really benefit from a year on the bench because if you play him right away, he's gonna revert to his old mechanics. Under fire, you play on instinct. You're not thinking. So you want to give him as many reps as possible with the new, like the right way, before he has to go out there and sink or swim. So I really think, unless he makes tremendous strides, I just see where he's starting in May. If by the end of August he's a totally different dude, then yeah, throw him in there. But not until that happens. Otherwise, he could definitely benefit from some time on the bench.
Definitely. And there's definitely, the 49ers are in a situation where they have a quote unquote starting quarterback ahead of them to where maybe they can afford to leave Trey on the bench for a little longer than
maybe it's the right thing to do. Maybe it's the right thing to do.
I do want to end this topic on this question. How would you think he compares to a player like Colin Kaepernick, who's someone you saw in person? I think, did you see him his rookie year at camp, Grant?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the comparison I thought, but actually I think they're very different. Kaepernick always has supreme confidence in his arm. I mean, I never saw a Kaepernick go through a day where he's like, man, I'm not going to let this one go because I don't think I'm going to hit the receiver. No, dude. Kaepernick, although he was very confident in his legs, he was a pitcher. He got drafted by the Cubs. He could have played baseball. He might have been better at baseball. He just preferred football. So when he was on the field, when he would warm up, he had this confidence about him, like, I have a two-sport. I'm a professional thrower in two sports. I'm really good. And his thing was he only threw fastballs. I mean, he would throw so hard, he would hurt receivers' hands. Only guys like Crabtree and Bolden could even catch the thing. Some guys, it would just go right through their hands. DBs for sure couldn't catch that sucker. He didn't have touch and things like that. But no, I mean, he was supremely confident in his arm, more confident than Alex Smith was. Trey is like Gabbert right now in the sense it's like, man, I'm going to miss that throw and people are going to be, I'm just going to be embarrassed. I'm not even going to throw it. He's holding the ball. There's a guy, he's like, no, running back. And that's fair, man. You're 21. You're just getting your feet underneath you. But no, I don't see the comparison to Colin Kaepernick yet. Now, remember, Kaepernick was 23 when he came to the Niners. He'd been a 4-year starter. This kid is a kid. So it's a whole different thing.
I want to overemphasize this, Grant. He's younger than I am.
Yeah, he's super young. He looks like he's 25. He's 21.
Yeah.
Looks like he's 25.
Very much 21, and people just have to take that into account.
But he needs to get this accuracy stuff down, because the way this offense is built, it's built on yards after the catch, which depends on pinpoint accuracy, because arm strength isn't as important. You're running slants and digs, so you got to hit the guy chest high out in front. Otherwise, you're not getting the yards after the catch, and if you're not getting the yards after the catch, you don't have an explosive offense. So Trey, this is why Kyle may have wanted Mac Jones, because that's what Mac Jones specializes in. That's what he's going to be doing in New England. So Trey, this is very important.
Yeah, and all the reports out of New England were today were great about Mac Jones. So I'm sure that just makes 49ers.
And Trey Lance is great at dumping the ball off to running backs, but what about the slant? What about the dig? Are you going to put the ball, when you're throwing the 15-yard dig, are you throwing it way too high? Because now you're throwing picks. You don't have to grunt. You see him, man, he's like almost trying to impress the team and the media too much. Like when he aims the ball to the running back, and it's like a little strange, but then when it's time to throw down the field, it's like this huge grunt, and it's very impressive when he hits the guy on target. It's like, man, like look at that arm. But when he misses, like you really wind it up for like a 15-yard pass. You can take a little off, man. You want the guy to be able to catch the ball, So I think he'll have to learn that.
Okay. And I think that like we've been hampering on, it's just absolutely fair. And all the criticisms and like what you seem to have gathered is that what we saw from Trey when we were evaluating him is what we're getting, right?
Yeah. Pretty. Yep.
Next, I want to talk about the guy ahead of him right now. Let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, the starter.
Sure.
I think this is a really interesting topic because on the one hand, like you've just suggested in the last few minutes, Trey Lance could easily sit on the bench for the entire season for the Niners.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, Jimmy Garoppolo is the starter for the 49ers. And let me just read this off for you before I let you go, Grant. In New England, Jimmy only played 2 games, and that's because he got injured. He got an AC joint injury. He was supposed to play 4 games because that's how long Tom Brady was suspended for. He never got to finish that up. Of the past 48 regular season games he's been available for, Jimmy has played in 25 of those games.
Oof.
So just for comparison's sake, right? Jimmy was paid about $85 million over that time. He was getting paid about $3.5 million per game played. That's a ridiculous number, especially when you look across the rest of the NFL. Guys like Russell Wilson are at $2 million. Big Ben, $2.5 million. Carson Wentz, $1.5 million. So with Jimmy, it's not a matter of do the 49ers want to start him the whole season. For me, it's a matter of will he last the whole season. So let me ask
how many games will Jimmy Garoppolo start? That's the unanswerable question, man. The answer is as many games as he can physically go. I really feel like this is going to be his job until he gets hurt one more time. One more time. If he gets hurt one more time and Trey Lance comes in and plays well, it's over. See you, Jimmy. Goodbye. And he doesn't even have to play that great because it's like, dude, you can't stay healthy. This guy's good enough. Peace. But I don't think that Trey Lance is going to beat him out in camp. It's just not the setting for Trey Lance to look bad.
Yeah, and Grant's disconnecting a little bit.
He might look better than him in preseason. Oh, I'm sorry. Dang. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now. It was just
my bad. I don't know what's going on. I got to restart my computer or something.
Anyway. You're okay. But
yeah, he'll start as many games as he can physically hold up.
Yeah, and just looking up and down the schedule this season, there's really not an easy opportunity for Trey to just go in and start a few games. If you look at the beginning of the season, that might be their easiest stretch. They face the Lions, the Eagles, and the Packers in their first 3 games. So if you're trying to put Trey Lance in a position to win and you're going to be sitting Jimmy Garoppolo, it's not like there's an easy opportunity to do it. I think the one thing we do have to look out for is that the trade deadline is, I believe, about week 8. That's where it was last year. I don't know how they've adjusted it with the league this year, but yeah, it's going to just, I think that'll be one of those points that we'll be looking at and we'll say, okay, do we think the team can offload Jimmy? But besides that, I mean, I'll let you go in a sec, Grant. Sorry, you were just disconnecting, but I think you're good now. There is a good spot later on in the schedule for Trey to start. If you look, week 11, they play the Jaguars. Week 12, they play Minnesota. Then it's at Seattle, which might be tough, but the game after that is at Cincinnati. So if you're looking at a 4-game stretch, that's not a bad 4-game stretch to have your first 4 starts.
Yeah, but I mean, if I were Kyle Shanahan trying to plan this out for Trey Lance, I mean, that's not how I would do, like, make the decision of when he needs to start. Like, what I would do is send him to a throwing doctor. He needs to go to a throwing doctor. Go to Tom House, Dr. Tom, and say, Tom, how much time, how many reps, how much time on task is it going to take Trey Lance to internalize? And maybe that's a hard question to answer, but no one will be more equipped to answer it than Tom House. If Tom House says, man, this is going to take him X amount of reps a day, maybe, he's going to need a season. He's going to need half a season. He's going to need 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. Then that's the timeline. Then he shouldn't play before then. And if Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt, then throw in Josh Rosen because this guy's your future. And if the leading throwing doctor in the world says he can do it, but he's going to need X amount of time, commit to that. Because if you throw him in before then, he's reverting. I guarantee it. We've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally on spot with that. I think even with this question, I was just trying to see if there's an easy.
No, it's a great question. It is the question. It's the question this year, but I think it's a trick answer.
Yeah,
it's a trick answer. You got because what's the most important thing is Trey Lance's future, not even this season, right? Really, you can't sacrifice Trey Lance's future to get through a stretch of this year because Jimmy got hurt.
I absolutely agree with that, especially on this basis. This team is not as good as the 2019 team, and people think they're going to win a lot of games. So with me, the only upside of starting Jimmy Garoppolo is if you think you can win a Super Bowl with him. I don't think they can. So
we'll see.
It's tough. On the one hand, like you're saying, it's just a matter of Trey when he's ready, when people say he's ready. I mean,
like, honestly, if Trey's ready at week 4 and Jimmy Garoppolo's played well weeks 1 through 3, see you, dude. It's Trey time. It's all about Trey. It's not about Jimmy. It's all about Trey, yeah.
No, and I think the only instance where it even becomes about Jimmy this year is if he gets hurt. Let's be real. I mean, that's the biggest factor affecting the team this year. It's gonna change everything for the team no matter what. But yeah, like you're saying, this is an impossible question to answer. I'm glad we covered it though.
It's a good question.
It's the question 49ers fans are going to be asking up until Trey Lance plays. But I do want to move on to this. The 49ers, they made it. I think going into this offseason, I had a certain idea about how they would attack it. And I was completely wrong. I didn't even get close, quite frankly. But I think if you look up and down at all the acquisitions they've made, they've really addressed the run game more than anything on offense. I mean, they drafted Trey Lance, of course. But if you look at all the complementary moves they made, it's all for the success of the run game. So how much do you think all these personnel additions that I'm talking about are going to help this team in 2021? Because I just want to go over this real quick. The team re-signed Trent Williams. They signed Alex Mack. They re-signed Kyle Juszczyk. They brought in Wayne Gallman. They drafted Trey Sermon. They drafted Elijah Mitchell and drafted Aaron Banks. Those are 7 players I just named who could help the 49ers run game immensely next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they will. I think they will. Like last year, it's a run-first team. A quarter of the games, Jerick McKinnon started running back. That's unacceptable. They were having tough time competing because they were running out of bodies at running back, which should never happen. It's the most plentiful position in the world. So they replenished. They have a guy in Wayne Gallman who was a terrific number 2 last year and actually started. So that's a nice, like, he may not even make the team, and you already know what he can give you, and it's good. You have all these guys with potential, 2 draft picks. Now, losing Jeff Wilson Jr. is rough, but you're asking me how the additions are going to help. These additions are going to help a lot, especially because Wilson Jr. is injury prone. You don't know what you're going to get from him. Same with Raheem Mostert. I mean, these guys, it's a very smart addition, very smart direction to take the team.
Yeah, and I think it's just this overall philosophy change, like you've been talking about, to get a bigger, more bruising team so that they can beat people up. I mean, I think that's what they're going to be trying to do next year. And one thing when I was looking over the 49ers run game, which I did notice, is usually teams are about, and if you're looking at PFF, rank about around the same for the run grade and the run blocking grade. The 49ers last year were 14th in run grade and 2nd and run blocking grade. So this is a team that's setting up players for success, even with an offensive line that was a little all over the place last season. So I think, just looking at these additions, they're going to make pass protection better with a guy like Aaron Banks, of course. But you add all those running backs to that room, and it's just going to make it such a dynamic part of their offense, which is so dynamic already.
Yep. Agree. Yeah. It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
I do want to move on to this last. And with Trey Lance, I think the one thing 49ers fans don't feel like they know quite yet, or maybe they have an idea about, is how different the offense is going to look. Because let's be real, the Jimmy offense and the Trey Lance offense are going to be two different things. And there's going to be a lot of similarities, of course. But just looking at what Trey Lance did in college, he did so much under center with a fullback behind him. So he's going to be able to succeed with that. And then I think the 49ers are going to implement that into their scheme more. But Grant, the one word, I wrote it down 3 times in my notes here: bootleg, bootleg, bootleg. 49ers, that's the one thing in their offense that they just don't have. They can't do it. Trey Lance is going to be able to do it. And with what he offers in the run game and the threat he is, it's going to be such an explosive play action bootleg game.
I agree. I mean, you think about it, that's the classic Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak offense, is the bootleg stuff. And Mike always had guys who could do it. Jake Plummer was like the bootleg king. John Elway could do it. Steve Young could do it. Kubiak just drafted Kellen Mond, who I love, who can do it. Kirk Cousins can do it. But since Kyle's come to the Niners, he's been obsessed with like New England Patriots style stationary quarterbacks who don't move. Jimmy used to be able to move a little bit, but since the torn ACL has become like the heaviest footed, slowest quarterback in the league. I mean, damn. So that's not even in the offense anymore. He's stationary. And what we're going to see with Trey Lance is much more pocket movement. What I've seen from him is he's so explosive. He's so quick in his drops and his rollouts that he's going to be like totally alone, wide open with big plays to make. And if guys aren't open, he can take off and run. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And I think let's talk about this too. I think one of the biggest things Trey has to offer to this team is his running ability.
Right.
And not just because of the yards he's going to get and the plays he'll make, but because of the threat it creates for the offense. And especially just looking at this Niners offense and the weapons they have. I mean, we're talking about Juszczyk, Trey Lance, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, all guys who can take jet sweeps, who can have the ball in their hands in the backfield. And I think they're going to take the Lamar Jackson offense and just turn it up to another level, because they have these explosive weapons that a team like the Ravens, quite frankly, just doesn't have. Right.
Totally agree. Totally agree with that. Yep.
And also, I think, if people are trying to go and look at teams they should watch, type of plays they should watch, go watch that 2012 Washington football team. I'm not saying that this offense is going to be the same, but there's certainly going to be a lot of concepts that we see carry over from that Robert Griffin III rookie year to this Trey Lance offense. I mean, there has to be, because that's the only way we've seen Kyle have a rookie quarterback and have someone this young who can run like that. So, I
don't know if there's going to be as much pistol and zone read and stuff. I don't know, because Kyle's should be more committed to Trey Lance's future. But the bootleg game is definitely going to be key. The only question with Trey Lance is, what's it going to look like on third down? Because there's only so much they can do for you on third. That's more like a 7-on-7 drill, man. You got to pick out that open receiver quickly and get it to him.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That's going to be super tough. And the other thing with Trey, too, is he seemed to be able to and he did this so much in college, he just ran over people in college. He trucked them. He's not going to be doing that at the same level he was.
Kaepernick didn't do stuff like that. He slid a lot. He got out of bounds. Trey better be smart. Although Josh Allen just runs over people. But he's bigger than Trey.
Josh Allen is so big. People don't talk about that enough. I mean, Cam Newton's huge, but Josh Allen is beefy. I mean, he really is. And with Trey, he's just got to learn how to avoid contact and put himself in a position to succeed.
Watch Kaepernick.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch Kaepernick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Grant, that's all I have for you today.
It's a great show, man. You're a pro.
I had a lot of fun doing this. I got to acknowledge this before I get out of here. The name of this is Shanalytics. I think it's the greatest pun I've ever come up with.
It's a good one.
I've been sitting on it since February, if I'm being
honest.
That's
fantastic. I love it. I love it. Make sure everyone, make sure if you're watching that you subscribe to Ben Meyerson, because he's fantastic. He's a pro. Look at him, man. He knows exactly what he's doing. This was a hell of a show. He came prepared. Highest recommendation.
Thank you, Grant. I do really appreciate that. And just right before we get out of here, I have all of Grant's stuff linked in my description below, his YouTube, his Twitter, and his Twitch, because you're doing Twitch streaming now. So I
don't know why, but it seems fun.
I like it. It's a different way to go about it.
Yeah.
But, let's get out of here on that. I had a great time talking to you, Grant. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you too, man.